So we're at, I think it's class 19 or 20 of our 32 classes of our structured study of Vipassana, introspective insight into the three marks of existence, Anicca, Anatta, and Dukkha. We just finished 5 talks on 3 suttas related directly to Dukkha. The first sutta, the Dukkha Sutta, we learned that there's 4 types of experiences of dukkha, of stressfulness. One is in the body as physical sensations and physical pain. One is mental pain or through mental fabrications. And one is simply the pain of change, constant change. That's that first mark, by the way, Anicca. The Buddha awakened to the profound understanding that it is ignorance of 4 noble truths that are the requisite condition that leads to fabrications. That's the first condition in dependent origination. So because of ignorance of 4 noble truths, I create a fabricated or corrupted or perverted view of myself in relation to the world. That's what a fabrication is. It's made out of nothing is basically what it means. It's made out of my own fake belief systems. These next 2 suttas, today's and Saturday's, deal directly to this problem of wrong views or individual wrong thinking that leads to individual or individual suffering. The reason why I'm saying that now is to look at this sutta tonight in relation to everything that we've been learning these 19 weeks and how the Dhamma resolves within the individual, that there's nothing external. And when you look at fabrications that clear way, you understand that every experience you have is influenced by what you hold in mind. And that's the true teaching on mindfulness. As the Buddha teaches mindfulness, we first develop concentration through jhana meditation. We're going to talk about that tonight and Saturday. And then from that well-concentrated or ever-increasing level of concentration, we're able to hold in mind the refined mindfulness of the Eightfold Path. And it is that holding in mind the Eightfold Path that then describes reality to ourselves as we're experiencing reality. Is that clear the way I said it? We're simply seeing things clearly from right view rather than wrong view, from a non-fabricated view. Okay, let me get into the sutta.
Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
When you talked about the 4 jhanas in this sutta, is it talking about on the cushion or off the cushion or both?
It's such a good question because the concentration we establish, and I know that's why you're asking it, the concentration we establish on our cushion and the seclusion we establish on our cushion is meant to be taken off our cushion. But the actual experience of noticing the 4 levels of jhana is something that is done during meditation. In other words, you might notice it off your cushion, but it's not a consequence of your intentional jhana meditation practice. Excuse me. Is that clear?
Yeah.
So in meditation, though, we are to notice, and only notice these levels of meditative absorption. In other words, they're not taught as something to notice that I'm in the first jhana and, oh boy, I better get to the second jhana quick. Or I can only get to the 3rd jhana, so I can't get that 4th jhana. It's none of that. The Buddhists taught, and it's often expressed that, or often taught that way, that I've been told straight face that jhana meditation isn't, or developing the jhana isn't for me. I probably won't be ready even in this lifetime for it. I remember the person saying this to me. That's not how the Buddha taught jhana. He simply taught it so that we recognize that our meditation practice is actually developing as it should. There's simply benchmarks along the way. So, great question. On one occasion, a certain monk went to the Buddha with a question. Upon arrival, he bowed and sat to one side. Great teacher, just now in seclusion, the thought occurred to me. You speak of 3 types of feelings. There is a feeling of pleasure, a feeling of pain, and a feeling that is neither pleasure nor pain. Then you said that whatever feeling arises, they are all stressful. In what connection did you say this? Excellent question, my friend, the Buddha says. Excellent question. I have spoken of these 3 feelings of pleasure, pain, and neither pleasure nor pain. I have also stated that whatever feeling arises, they are all stressful. Why is that? Why are all feelings that arise? Now remember, we're talking about a person who has yet to develop the Dhamma. Why is it that within that person, when any feeling arises, the feeling itself is stress-inducing? Michael.
This ignorance of the Four Noble Truths.
Yes, and what's the motivating?
The ego.
The self-referential view that is rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Thank you. Excellent. The Buddha continues, I have stated this in connection to fabrications. What did he state in connection to fabrications? That all feelings are stressful. All feelings aren't inherently stressful. They're only inherently stressful to a mind that is rooted in fabrications. A mind that is not rooted in fabrications still has feelings, but they're no longer stressful. In other words, that's an awakened human being. We don't cry because we got our hand caught in a cookie jar. It's just that. It's just what's arising. It's time for dinner. It's not time for chocolate chip cookies. And a mature human being simply puts the top down on the cookie jar, don't they? They don't whine and moan and get all bent out of shape or start projecting or even maybe developing hatred towards the person that's doing that. You simply understand this is how an awakened human being, this is how a mature human being acts. And we do that in all areas of our life. I'm using somewhat of a silly example, but all of us have recognized the value of Dhamma practice in the simple fact that we're acting more mature more often. True? Yes? No?
Yes.
Lorna?
When I first read this, it was like, okay, this speaker was asking a question about feelings, and why are they stressful? And the Buddha says they're stressful because of fabrications, and it's because fabrications are impermanent. And my first thought was, well, feelings are impermanent too, so why isn't that the cause of stress?
Shall we get to it? When are you talking about reading it just now or in the past?
Well, no, when I read it last night.
So let's get to it.
What's going on here?
Fabrications are impermanent. It is the nature of fabrications to arise and pass away, to change. So I'll ask you, Ron, when I have a fabricated view of myself that is fixed in place and cannot, or is very averse to change, or even a challenge to that view, do you see how a fabricated view that is impermanent and is subject to change will cause stress?
Right.
And every time that I have a fabricated view of myself in relation to the world and it's challenged in any way, there's stress. Even the challenge that I need to change that fabrication is stress. A good example is, I think everybody knows that I'm a recovered drug addict and alcoholic. The worst thing for a drug addict and alcoholic to do is to take a drink or a drug, isn't it? Yet the stress about letting go of that fabrication that right now I need to have a drink or a drug to survive is itself stressful, isn't it? A fabrication itself is stressful because it is impermanent. And it's attached to impermanent objects, events, and ideas. That's the three marks of existence within a fabricated view, isn't it? So you ask a very important question and you were subtly getting to the point. It's just that. Do you see that now?
Well, I'm kind of
You getting there? All right,
let's
let's see where the Buddha takes us.
because I'm still looking at, okay, where did the feelings come in?
The Buddha continues, it is in connection to fabrications that I stated that whatever feeling arises, they're all stressful. It is in connection to fabrications. So I have a corrupted view about what's occurring right now. I have a corrupted view about this feeling, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Forget about classifying a feeling as something that is what I would classify as pleasurable, because the same thing that I classify as pleasurable, someone else will find as disappointing. Exactly the same thing. We all know that. By me insisting in my little mind, in my fabricated view, lacking understanding of Four Noble Truths, that this feeling is valid, and it's valid simply because I'm having the feeling.
That's the fabrication.
Yes, and every one of those feelings is impermanent. We know that. I mean, we know without the Dhamma, we know that feelings change all the time. But when we attach a fabricated view that I need this particular object that results from my feeling to either be happy or be safe and secure or not disappointed, I'm basing my entire life on fabrications, aren't I? And what are fabrications? They're impermanent and so stressful. Do you remember a sutta early on, I think it was the third or fourth, the Anatta Sutta, where the Buddha teaches in relation to the self, if it is impermanent, how can it be a self? And if it is impermanent, it is always stressful. And so connecting a self to anything impermanent is always stressful. And it takes a fabricated view to do just that. Why would I create a permanent self attaching myself to something that is impermanent? It's just foolish and fabricated. So you getting there?
Yeah.
The Buddha, let me go back that one line. Whatever feeling arises, they are all stressful to a mind rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. Furthermore, I have also taught the step-by-step process of the cessation of fabrications. What is the step-by-step process? Who read the thing?
Can you just read that again,
Sure.
please?
Furthermore, I have also taught the step-by-step process of the cessation of fabrications. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the first jhana, speech falls away, including it, I have it in parentheses, including that internal dialogue. That's really more important.
Directed thought and evaluation.
Yes. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the second jhana, directed thought and evaluation falls away. This is a very brief description of the levels of jhana. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the third jhana, rapture falls away. Rapture in this sense is not the rather archaic reference to the second coming of Christ or anything like that. Rapture simply means a joyful engagement with something. We are enraptured. In this case, we are enraptured with our Dhamma practice, with our meditation practice. And when we have attained the third jhana, even that falls away. Rapture falls away. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fourth jhana, in and out breathing has passed away. It certainly doesn't mean that we stop breathing in the fourth jhana. It simply means that it's just a natural flowing. We're not thinking about it anymore. We're just simply connected with our breath, and our mind is resting in equanimity. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fabricated dimension of infinite space, the perception of form passes away. Now, pay attention here, because the Buddha is not teaching that as a level of attainment. He's teaching it as this notion of a speculative self-establishment as something that simply falls away. A mind that is rooted after mystical and magical grasping will ignore that last part. Then it falls away and try to attain this speculative level of nothingness or emptiness or any of these other levels of perception or non-perception. Is that clear? It's just another fabrication. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fabricated dimension of infinite space, the perception of form passes away. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fabricated dimension of infinite consciousness, the perception of the dimension of infinite space passes away. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fabricated dimension of nothingness, the perception of the dimension of infinite consciousness passes away.
You had that second set here, when he attained the fabricated dimension of infinite space. You had it in twice. Actually, you have it in the next section where things are still the same way.
Well, yeah, there's a reference to it that way. You know, and so this reference here, if you go back 1 week to the Kula Dukkha Sutta and the Maha Dukkha Sutta, both of those suttas teach that compulsive sensory and sensual indulgence is the allure, the drawback, and the release from stress and suffering, the basics. And both of those suttas taught the stressfulness of fake or fabricated dharmas. And that's what the Buddha is referring to here. The idea of developing a speculative self-establishment in any one of these realms is pure fabrication. It's not It's not like there's a higher level of fabrication, so it's good to think about these things or create them. It's just pure fabrication. And it's all rooted in ignorance, no matter how exalted the phraseology might be or the reference to this grand dimension of emptiness or nothingness, which most Buddhists are trying to attain. It's pure speculation. It's something that the Buddha didn't taught. And it's a fabrication and a stress-inducing fabrication to believe it. It's part of the Dhamma to understand that's a primary part of what the Buddha is teaching. He's teaching what we should hold in mind and what we should let go of or recognize is part of our thinking and let go of it. Let me continue. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fabricated dimension of neither perception nor non-perception, the perception of the dimension of nothingness simply passes away. In even the specific directions should be looked at a little bit more vaguely than the translations has allowed for. Basically, what this Buddha is saying is, any of these speculative existences is just that. It's a fabrication. Let it go. It's prone to causing stress. When a Dhamma practitioner has recognized and abandoned these qualities, including the I-making of mystical dharmas. When a Dhamma practitioner has recognized and abandoned these qualities, they have attained the cessation of the perception and feelings. When these unskillful mental qualities have ended, greed, aversion, and delusion have ended too. Any type of speculation, whether it's to these mystical, magical realms or the insistence that I need to be something in the world and I have a fabricated view about what that is, and that's what drives me, there's always going to be stress. And it has nothing to do with whether I might achieve my goals or not. That's not significant to the Dhamma. What's significant to the Dhamma is my peace of mind. And what am I doing in this moment to either maintain or contribute to a peace of mind or to continue ignorance and stress? And in order for me to understand that, I have to understand fabrications and how to eliminate them. Now, the instructions here are a direct teaching on how to directly address the problem of fabrications in meditation through that simple method of being mindful of the breath. And when I'm caught up in a thought again, what do? Come back to the breath. I've just interrupted the fabrication that kept me thinking and distracted in my own meditation practice. And every time I catch myself doing that, I'm caught up in my thoughts again and come back to the sensation of breathing, I'm interrupting my own compulsive need towards ongoing fabricated thinking. Is that clear? Could you, Michael?
So Jhana, it would go like this then, right? Fabrication, right? Recognition, stillness, awakening.
Ideally, yes.
Awakening with the cessation of ignorance.
Yeah, as you recognize your fabrications and simply put them aside, eventually you get to that place of equanimity and lasting peace. So that is those 4 steps are the Dhamma. It usually gets a little bit more involved in that. But
the recognition is basically where we all are, like right now. Most of us, would you say, because recognition of like that moment, that contact moment, that's where our recognition comes in as to right action, wrong action, eightfold path.
Yes, take a look at this before we go tonight. Maybe we'll go over it together, just if you have a couple of minutes. It's at the point we're talking now, at the point of eye making.
Yes.
That's where we apply it. And when I'm eye making, a good reference is the Bahia Sutta. When for you, there's no you here, there, or anywhere. Then you're free. Then you're awakened. It's because of a fabricated view that we create a fabricated self in this world. That's called eye making. And as we develop the Eightfold Path, it allows us to recognize our fabrication. How? How do we recognize a fabrication? Because we're able to see the eye making in it. And we remind ourselves as it comes up over and over and over again, this is not me, this is not mine, this is not what I am.
All things self-referential.
Yep. And The best thing about giving up all self-referential views is they're like foam on the ocean. There's nothing to them. It seems substantial because it's us, but it's only the us that causes stress and suffering and confusion in our minds. We're not letting go of anything valuable at all. I mean, it's not the ego self, the self-referential ego self, Anatta, clings tenaciously to these things because it's created an identity. But all of the identities are rooted in nothing. They're not worth losing our mind over. And for the most part, too, you know, everybody has that underlying feeling of when they first realized or look at this, that we're talking about annihilation, that there's no such thing as a self, and how are you going to function in the world when you let go of all these self-referential views? You're going to function in the world very nicely and at peace and at a much higher level than you ever did before, because you're not in your own way and you're not living a fabricated existence. You know, the difference between a fabricated existence is just like that. It's only noticeable from a mind that's awakened. From a mind that is still rooted in ignorance, it can't recognize it because it has an ignorant view. It's the nature of ignorance to ignore its own ignorance, isn't it? That's why the Buddha developed an Eightfold Path. And what you were getting at, Michael, it's just that way. We're able to see the process that we are engaging in ourselves. The fact that we are prone to greed, aversion, and deluded thinking is not a mistake. It's what happens as a consequence of having a human life. There's no one to blame, ever. In fact, if we don't awaken, there's no one to blame either. And like, we can't even say, well, we only have ourselves to blame for not developing the Dhamma. That's true. But if we don't, bear with me for this one, if we don't develop the Dhamma right now, if we don't take to the Dhamma right now and continue our process, it's only because of our fabricated view of who we are anyway, isn't it? It's only a fabrication that can keep you from awakening. It's only a fabricated view that will move you away from the Dhamma and start practicing. Think of the brilliance of what the Buddha taught in these last three suttas and now this one. If you continue with a fabrication, you're going to continue with a fabricated Dharma. And that Dharma, the second half of the Maha Dukkha Kanda Sutta, it's that fabricated belief, and not just talking about Buddhist dharmas, any false belief is going to lead to stress and suffering. It's just that simple. And from what I found and what we're practicing here, the only person, the only human being that has figured this out yet in this way, as an eightfold path, as a pathway from ignorance to wisdom, the only human being that's yet to teach a path is Siddhartha Gautama, and this is the path. And it's just that simple and just that specific. If we want to end a fabricated life experience and all the stress and suffering that comes from that, we develop the Dhamma and awaken. And that's how we put it all aside. No magic, no secrets, no advanced teachings, by the way. It's just this. It's just our Dhamma. Let me continue. So I always got to go back one. When these unskillful mental qualities have ended, greed, aversion, and delusion have also ended. Furthermore, I have also taught the step-by-step process of the stilling of fabrications. So fabrications are something that are constantly produced by a mind rooted in ignorance. The Dhamma stills the fabrications. It's designed to do that. Does that help make sense of what you were referring to before?
Yeah, yeah. I'm starting to see the structure. I was missing the what he was trying to teach you.
Yes, and your question helped bring that out.
So pieces, but I didn't see how one led to the other.
And you see here, in this line, where even though a fabrication is a construct of my mind, there's what's the right word? There's a component of ignorance that is constantly churning up ignorance. How do I say this? How do I teach this? In meditation, when you find yourself caught up in your thoughts, you're not directing yourself to have those thoughts. You're finding yourself in your thoughts, correct? Mm-hmm. But there's something motivating those thoughts. The thoughts aren't just arising out of nothing. That doesn't add up. That's contrary to the Dhamma. Something is motivating the thoughts that are distracting me in my meditation. I don't have, and I'm not talking about getting analytical about where do they come from, because that's just simply another, what's the word, what'd you say?
Fabrication.
It's another distraction.
So,
The results, the reason why the Buddha didn't teach any kind of creation myth is the results of what's occurring right now is what's important to understanding fabrications of what you were talking about, Michael. Because it's not important for me to understand how my thinking got me here, because if I'm doing that, I'm just stuck in the past, aren't I? No matter where that thought process takes me. But if I recognize the results of ignorance as greed, aversion, and deluded thinking in this moment, I know my thinking is fabricated. And so from that initial knowledge tells me that my next thought is going to be fabricated as well, unless I have a way to change the underlying motivation for my thinking. That's where the Eightfold Path comes in. Rooted in concentration, the Eightfold Path supplants all those fabrications. And now what is motivating my thoughts are framed by the Eightfold Path. Does that make sense to everyone? Please say yes.
Yes.
That's the Dhamma. That's why we're practicing the Dhamma. We're integrating a completely radical way of looking at ourselves in relation to the world that isn't in addition to what we've developed in our years on the planet. I'll use the word again, it supplants that. We recognize thinking that no longer serves me. We let it go and we develop a way. This is as an adult is able to do this, aren't we? We're able to think what we want to think when we want to think it, as the Buddha taught in the Vipassana Sutta, when we have the underlying foundation and framework to do so. If not, we're always compelled to continue creating fabricated views. Michael?
John, would there would be then once recognition occurs, then the self actually slows down or stops the self-perpetuating thoughts?
Just as the Buddha said here, in the stilling of it.
Is that the way you're looking for it?
It's through this process that what we're talking about, the Buddha is describing here. This is how you do it, and this is how you're experiencing it. Fabrication still. Think about that for a moment. The reason why we're here is because of our fabricated way of thinking. We may not have realized it when we first walked in the door, but that's why you're here. And so we found a way to recognize what is, for all intents and purposes, completely hidden and unrecognizable without the right tool. And what's the right tool? The Eightfold Path, rooted in concentration. And so we go from that wrong view of constantly fabricating my experience to constantly living what's occurring right now without the need for it to be any different than it is. You heard me say that a few times?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it means, without a fabricated view. Continue. The step-by-step process of stilling the fabrication. Excuse me. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the first jhana, speech has been stilled. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the second jhana, directed thought and evaluation has been stilled. This is the Buddha saying the same thing in a slightly different way. These things that were provoking us in the past are now quieting down, or quieted down. They've stilled. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the third jhana, rapture has been stilled. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fourth jhana, in and out breathing has been stilled. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the fabricated dimension of infinite space, the perception of infinite form has been stilled. I'm going to skip over the rest because that's just a repetition of what we just talked about. And the conclusion is that that particular disturbance has been stilled. The dimensions of nothingness, perception, non-perception, emptiness, etc. When these unskillful mental qualities have ended, greed, aversion, and deluded thinking have been stilled. The Buddha continues, now friend, there are these 6 profound calmings. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the first jhana, speech has been calmed. The Buddha is talking about a profound calming. That's a pretty profound word, isn't it? And we have that profound calming every time we meditate.
So speech is still there. but
Speech
it's
has
now-
been, yeah. Well, look at,
it's now, it has a different,
it's not an aspect of stress and suffering.
right.
Here's an example of speech that has been calmed. There's no conflict, is there? By the way, there's no opportunity for conflict. I'm not saying we should always never talk. There's no conflict when I'm quiet. There's no opportunity for conflict when I'm quiet with another person. But think about that inwardly. Think about this, not speaking, but not speaking inwardly. And the lack of opportunity for inner conflict, if I can do that, if I can stop that inner dialogue about what's wrong with me or what do I need to be happier, what's going to happen if this, all of that stuff is stilled. It's simply stilled.
So it's not just that there's a calmer way of doing this. There's just the calming is like the ending of it.
Yes. Wow. Yes. Calm is not something that we manufacture or try to isolate within us. Calm is a function of developing a Dhamma.
The need to establish yourself.
Yes. In fact, I wouldn't even call it a skill, like calling concentration a skill, because the mind resting in equanimity is the result of Dhamma practice. It's not even the goal of Dhamma practice, because if you set it up as the goal, you're always grasping after that. But we're all noticing a measure of equanimity in our lives and in our meditation practice. Yes?
Getting there.
That's the 4th level. And again, that's why the Buddha teaches it. Not that it's something we should attain or chase after, but to recognize that we're developing it within our meditation practice. Let me get cool.
I went to go vote earlier and I didn't even get mad.
See, it works. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the 2nd jhana, directed thought and evaluation have calmed. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the 3rd jhana, rapture has been calmed. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the 4th jhana, in and out breathing has been calmed. When a Dhamma practitioner has attained the cessation of perception and feeling, perception and feeling have been calmed, etc., in those different non-physical speculative existences. Let me finish with the last one, because that's the end of the sutta. When a Dhamma practitioner's effluence have ended, passion has calmed, aversion has been calmed, and delusion has been calmed. The 3 marks of the greed, aversion, and deluded thinking, the 3 defilements. I'm going to read it once more. When a Dhamma practitioner's effluence have ended, passion has been calmed, aversion has been calmed, and delusion has been calmed. That's the end of the sutta. Saturday Sutta is along the same lines. The Anupada Sutta, subtitle Ending Fabrications, one after another. This is ending fabrication through jhana, but it's directly through that, our practice, that we end fabrications. It's not through any other practice or agency. It's not, as we've learned, it's not about analyzing it or even blaming ourselves for fabricating our existence. It's simply a process of recognition and abandoning it. So let's go around the room and we'll start with Jane. How are you, Jane?
I'm fine, thank you. I have nothing to add. I'm feeling much more calm. So something's working.
Glad you joined us, Jane. Hello, Matt.
John, good to see everybody. Just wanted to clarify something that's come up with regard to jhana, where jhana is practiced, in what context, and like John said, jhana meditation is referring directly to when we sit on our cushion, when we practice meditation in seclusion. So when we are off of our cushion, not in seclusion anymore, in the world, the calm and stillness that was cultivated and concentration that was developed through jhana meditation in seclusion is available in the world. So seclusion is referring to literal seclusion, being in seclusion. Coming off of their cushion into the world, we're not in seclusion anymore, we're in the world. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thank you. And as our concentration increases, we're able to take that seclusion off our cushion and then live in the world without getting entangled in it. Again, that's the purpose of concentration practice, so that we're able to do this and integrate this. Kevin?
Just to continue with that, and I would ask the question just aloud. It's not right or wrong. How would one do that? How would not? How does one not get entangled in the world? I mean, I know the answer. I'm asking. The eightfold
Well, what's
path.
the answer?
The eightfold path.
Yeah.
And that's what this sutta has an overlying. While it describes jhana and in seclusion, the practice in seclusion, there's an inferred meaning as to what's in the world, and fabrications are experienced in the world as well.
Yep.
And when the Buddha describes they fall away, he's talking about in the context of anicca, impermanence. They fall away. Fabrications arise and fall away on their own.
Yep.
When he also talks about stilling out in the world, we experience that in anatta. That's where cessation is experienced, here in this not a self. And then the calming, sort of the dukkha, is sort of the calming in the world is expressed with the eightfold path, and that's a calming. That's calm abiding. That allows for life as life occurs, an auspicious moment, an auspicious day to occur. So it's almost like a meaning within this that can be taken out, and I just wanted to continue.
Yeah, thank you. The appearance in the world of the Eightfold Path is, I think, the most uncommon event, because it's the one thing that has been introduced in the world that I know of that doesn't fit. It contradicts everything in the world, the Eightfold Path. The way the world has been set up from a population rooted in ignorance of Four Noble Truths. It's really remarkable in that way. And so you could say, and I'm probably stretching the metaphor a little further than Matt wants me to, the Eightfold Path does establish seclusion no matter where we are, if we've integrated that path through the path itself, through a well-concentrated mind. And it also, as we develop it, a mind rooted in concentration, developing that mindfulness of right view, we're taking the Eightfold Path everywhere. And so we are establishing seclusion no matter where we are. The world doesn't affect us because we don't grasp onto it anymore. It's just that way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
seclusion is just the world not touching us.
The interruption.
Yeah, you said something important. Fabrications just they fall away. They do all the time. In order for me to maintain greed, aversion, and deluded in my life, I have to keep recreating the fabrications that I've created so far. I do it because they're familiar, and we condition ourselves to create the same things over and over again. But just because I do it doesn't mean that I should continue to do it. In fact, at some point in my life, for me, very, very young, I realized I didn't put it all together that way, but the way that I'm looking at myself in relation to the world sucks. It doesn't work for me. I'm 15 years old. Why am I so disgusted with everything? I mean, I grew up okay, I had a lot of nice, etc. As a young kid, I was angry and frustrated because nothing made sense. And it wasn't until I developed this and realized, now I know why it didn't make sense, because it can't make sense. But this makes sense because it works. Lorna.
Oh boy. We've talked a lot about fabrications, stilling and calming, which is obviously true, and I can say I've experienced that, but I can also say that I fundamentally don't believe them like I used to do.
Wow.
And in the not believing my own fabrications and realizing that the fabrications are not really believing them, helps me through the day. Thank you.
Thank you. And so when you can do that once, you realize that they're all like foam on the ocean,
Yeah.
right? Without getting too personal, if it's impossible, just say no. Can you give me an example of that? Okay. I don't mean to pry, because I realize that could be very, very personal.
No, it's just my own. I do call it my own stuff. I mean, it's just my own stuff. I know it's my own stuff, my own fabrications.
You see that you created it.
And I see that I created it. And I see that they're there every day, and it's the same old stuff.
Yep.
It's just my stuff. Just to bring anything to mind right now, I can't. But
and you're seeing it. It's just the way you're seeing your stuff too.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, because it is just that. So, Tim, good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see everybody. Thank you, Matt, for clarifying that, because that kind of leveled it out for me. When feelings arise and we have the contact with that feeling, it becomes a fabrication because you're self-identifying with it. Recognition of that can be an onslaught if you're somebody new to this, a stream enterer like myself, when it's even under cushion. However, I got out of the sutta that the Buddha was saying, practice, keep doing it, because this is what will eventually happen just through the nature of being under cushion and having concentration and having that calmness and stillness, so it's no longer a fabrication because you don't identify, it's not identified with.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that I'm articulating it, that's what is going on with that.
Yeah. Beautiful. And yeah, we're kind of saying the same thing
Over and over.
but it's the Eightfold Path that is a defining characteristic here that we're talking about, that develops that. And again, it's up to us if we do it. We don't have to do it.
But in this sutta, though, he's focusing on the mind, the concentration aspect more so of the Eightfold Path.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's obviously he's like what Kevin was saying. There's obvious statements towards the entirety of it, but jhanas, he's specifically focusing on the concentration to develop the ability to recognize these fabrications.
Yes. So the Buddhist always teaching people that either know what he's talking about, or he gives or the talk itself is very, very basic. So here he's obviously talking to experienced Dhamma practitioners who understand like we understand. This would not be the first sutta that he would give to a crowd of people he doesn't know anything about. This is people that understand the Dhamma and know how to apply what he's saying and understand the idea of fabrication. So you can't say that it's a absolutely complete teaching if you didn't understand the other important teachings. This probably wouldn't be of much use. But in this context, it's very useful because it's getting us, if you look at the progression from where we started 20 weeks ago to now, we are really focused on individual fabrications now, because this is the heart of the matter. If we can recognize and abandon these fabrications, we will awaken. We'll develop that's the point of the Dhamma. So, thank you. Rob.
Yeah, this is another step in the way. I mean, weeks and weeks ago, I kept tripping over that statement by Kandana.
All conditioned things?
Yeah, all conditioned things, all fabrications arise and pass away. And then I see it at just about every teaching. The end of it is the ending of fabrications. And here is a teaching that addresses fabrications directly.
Yep.
This is what they do, and this is how you end it. So it's a nice progression here to just the understanding of fabrications. I can still see gaps in my understanding of fabrications and what they do and how I deal with them. But this is this adds a lot to my understanding of it. And I realized that there wasn't a lot. I was wondering about fabrications and what role they play, because it's the big fabric of the Dhamma.
Yeah, it is. So another way of looking at or recognizing fabrications is a fabrication does not relate directly to Four Noble Truths. In other words, if it doesn't fit into Four Noble Truths, it's a fabrication. What do you do with it when you find out you got a fabrication stuck in your mind? Take a breath, come back to you, let it go. That's all you need to do.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kate, good to see you tonight. How are you?
You too. Good. I think it can be really hard sometimes, especially in the beginning, to spot your own fabrications because they are so automatic, and it's like this ongoing monologue in your head of most of it is fabrications. It's helped me to just, every time I have a thought that I know is causing me stress, to look at, am I trying to establish myself in this even further, or am I bumping up against wanting things to be different than they are?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes to either of those, then it's a fabrication, and it's just, you can recognize it.
Yeah.
So I try to look at things from that view. As much as I can now.
That's outstanding. That's the Dhamma. How have you been in doing that?
I mean, it's an ongoing effort, but I think it gets easier.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and that's the basic practice. Great. Thank you, Kevin. Good to see you tonight.
Nice to see you, John. Nice to be here. Thank you for this sutta. I don't think I have anything to add.
I'm glad you're here. Hello, Helen.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm fine as well. I enjoyed the discussion of this much more than I enjoyed the reading of it. The redundancy of that style of writing makes me feel like I'm walking up a rocky mountain and I'm going up one step and down another and up a step and down two more. So when you break it down to its simple elements like Matt did and Kevin did, it makes it's clear. So I appreciate this sangha very much.
Yeah, me too. Thank you, Helen. Hello, David. Glad you're here. Hello, Russ. Good to see you.
Good to be here. I don't have anything to add, but I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here too. Good to see you, Andrew.
Good to be here. Not much to add, but I must say I like to look at things in as simplistic a way as possible. And something you said a few minutes ago was, when you recognize a fabrication, take a breath and let it go. I mean, that in itself is something worth remembering daily.
Yeah, I think so. It works for me. Glad you came tonight. It's good to see you. Hey, Michael.
Hi, John. It was a really great lesson. Love listening to the explanation of how everything unfolds. Noble silence. I'm good. Thank you.
Glad you're here. Hi, Julia.
Thank you very much, John, for the knowledge, and I enjoyed listening to all the comments to clarify the reading.
Yeah.
So, noble silence also.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glad you came. All right, good. Yeah, we're going to have another talk on fabrications on Saturday. posted in the newsletter. I can't think of, there's something else? No? Dinner, we did all that? Okay. I think we're good. That's it. We'll finish with metta as we always do. So again, find your relaxed meditation posture and take a moment to become mindful of your in-breath and your out-breath. And these are the Buddha's words on metta from the Karaniya Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties, and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings. Radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will. Whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness, one should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Thank you all for a wonderful class tonight. Peace.
Thank you, John.
See you, Jane.
Hey, John.